Welcome to Your Family's Health. This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Gerard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College. Your Family's Health is a program that focuses on healthcare issues and resources available here in Nassau County. On the show, we will be speaking to experts from around the country to keep you up to date on current healthcare issues and trends. Today, we will be speaking to our special guest, Kim B. Miller, and it will be about relationship health. So if you want to know more about how to stay healthy in Nassau County, stay tuned for the next half hour to the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. And welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you.
So, this is a very profound book that you wrote, and the title of the book is How to Love Your Kids More Than You Hate That Man. It kind of speaks to itself. So tell us your story. What brought you to write this book?
Well, my first marriage ended in a divorce due to cheating. And at that point, to be honest, I was really, I hate to say pushed. And I say push because I say voluntarily push, because everything is a choice, but we'll get to that in a minute, toward not seeing him for a while. Because when you're hurt, you don't want to see the person who hurt you the next day. But your kids who were not part of the process need to see their dad the next day. And once I started examining that and looking at the other ladies and men and fathers and mothers in this similar situations, I realized that we had a big problem.
So, when your husband cheated on you, tell me about, at that point, where were your children in? Did they know what happened? Did they understand what was happening?
No, thank goodness. They were young. They were very young children, so they had no understanding of cheating and infidelity or anything of that nature. And they didn't even realize probably I wasn't happy. So all that was a godsend that it happened at the time it happened, that they were too young to understand. But I knew, and I would never bring them in. I didn't tell them at that young age, you know what your father did? That is not their cross to bear.
So I think that's key, that, and it's very difficult, probably challenging, to go through something so painful like infidelity and not divulge at least in some way to your children that you're hurting. Do you think they picked it up?
I don't, because I tried. As I tell people, I may not look like Halle Berry, but I can act just as good as she does. Okay. But no, I was very on point to make sure that they didn't pick that up. I really tried, and later in life I spoke to them, and they didn't have an inkling of that at that time, which is what I was aiming for. I often, when you say infidelity and not showing the children what's going on with their father, is that being authentic to yourself? It is and it isn't. People say, well, you're supposed to be your true self 100% of the time and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, nobody goes into church, even if they have cursed before, and goes in front of God's house and starts cursing. So we can adapt to the situation. I call it adapting to the situation. And young children are not supposed to be your confidant. Young children are supposed to be children. So let's keep them in their role, and we as adults stay in our roles.
So even though your husband at that time, you're remarried now, even though your husband at that time was unfaithful in the relationship, how did you ultimately divorced him?
Yes.
And so when you started to move apart from one another, and he, I guess, was living in a different location, what did you say to the children?
I just said, me and your father have separated. He's going to live someplace else. I'm going to live someplace else. And they were young enough that they're not going to ask a lot of questions. They understood that their dad wasn't going to be there 24/7, but they weren't at the age to go, well, why not? And blah, blah, blah. So the limited questions I got was based on their age range, which was very young. So they understood that he wouldn't be there, and they would see him on occasion. So that's how that went, pretty much.
What would you say to parents whose children are older and they kind of sense that there is an alienation going on between the father and the mother, or the relationship, the marriage? It's
a sad revelation when I talk to people, and I've talked to grown adults now. Grown adults, when I'm saying over 18, some 20, 30, 40-year-olds who still hold pain based on what happened with their parents. So if you're a parent and you're listening and you think, well, that was 20 years ago, that was 30 years ago, that was 5 years ago, they're past that. They are not past it. I've seen grown people break out into tears based on what happened. Some, they've realized later that the mother was lying, that the father was lying, that both were lying. You know, the lies that are told to get our point across hurt our children when we're trying to get our own agenda out there.
So you're saying we should be candid with it depending upon the age of the child, or should we still hold back some of the hurt that we feel as mothers, or I guess fathers, who find themselves in the same situation? Should we at all divulge this to our children?
I think it really depends on the age of the children, and it's a need to know information. I say it this way: if you were the one who was unfaithful, would you run right in there and tell your kids, well, this is what I did and I was unfaithful? And no, you'd find a way to say, well, I had problems and I had issues. If it was you, you'd want a certain amount of decorum used. So make sure you're not doing something to suit yourself. If that parent has done something that wrong, the kids will eventually figure it out. I decided that when they asked the question, when they were old enough, then I would discuss it with them. They would figure out who their parent was, and they do. Kids will figure out the true nature of their parents as time goes on. But if you try to bury that parent, if you try to teach hate is a door that once you open it is very hard to close.
So this book titled How to Love Your Kids More Than You Hate That Man, to me, when I read the title, it means to me that although you may feel feelings of resentment, your love has to supersede the situation that you're experiencing.
Correct. That's 100% the title. You have just wrapped it up in a bow. And people have looked at it like, oh, you hate the man. No, you don't really hate. You just pain. Pain talks before love starts. And people don't understand. A lot of time they're meeting people, they're meeting their pain. When that pain starts talking, love is there. It's just in the background. So if you can get that parent to see, if you truly love your kids, that disdain, pain you have for that man, and it works for the woman too, because we've done wrong too. It's not always the man. Just let's get that out there. Right. But that pain speaks first.
And so during this infidelity in your life, and I'm sure there was some anger there towards your ex-husband. Loving your children at that point, did you feel some sort of distancing with the relationship did your husband try to kind of make inroads into your relationship with the children to kind of get back at you? Was there any of that went on? Because sometimes that does happen.
Yeah, luckily that wasn't his thing. He wasn't trying to get, revenge back on me because I left and I took the kids. So I know there's a lot of women who do experience that. I did not. So we just cut the cord as it was, and that was that. So he didn't try to use them to get back at me, and I didn't use them to get back at him. And again, I tell people, I understand that person who you perceive, because it's not always true hurt, the person who you perceive that hurt you, you don't want to see tomorrow, but your kids may need to see that person tomorrow.
That's a good point. So how do you promote healthy parenting in the face of a divorce?
The first thing is, who are you putting first? Are you putting your children first, or are you putting revenge first? Because you do have to make a decision. Every day is a choice. You get up and you decide, who do I love? Do I love my children? And those aren't just words. Words are actions. And if you're going to take your words and put them into an action, then that's what you have to do. You can't just say, oh, I love my children, but I'm not going to let you see your father. If the father is abusive in something, that's a whole nother ball game. That's an individual case basis. We're not talking about those cases. We're talking about a loving father, and you two just broke up. That does not involve the children. That's your pain. Don't put your pain on your children.
So in your relationship, although you were going through a divorce, you were still able to face your ex-husband and relinquish, if you will, or allow visitation for with someone who hurt you deeply and almost betrayed you.
Yes.
Put that aside and still encourage visitation.
Absolutely. Because they loved and needed their father. It was bigger than me. And if we as parents say that we are going to be parenting, then as parents, we do things that are bigger than us. Because we love our children, we sometimes put them first. we try to get them ahead. We try to get them to have a better life than what we've had. How are they going to have that if the person who some of them look like, you tell them that person is awful? Well, daddy's horrible. Well, you said I look like daddy, so does that mean I'm horrible? Kids make correlations where there's no correlation in place. So be careful how you label that person who they consider their parent, because they will put that label on themselves.
That's profound. Because that I think that is a key principle, whether you're divorced, whether you're married, that you don't put a label or label your husband, partner in a way that's going to make that parent look like a villain or a bad person. So that's very key. That's very good. Tell me, when you were thinking about entering into another relationship, because I know you're remarried, how did the children, what did they think about that? How was their feelings about that?
They were very open to that, which surprised me. And I was like a interview nut. I was like, even though I had known him before, I was like, okay, well, Mama Bear is in the house, so let's discuss. This is, I hate to use, the Robin Givens thing, but this is a package deal. How do you feel about this package? Because, these two ain't going nowhere, and I need to make sure that they are whole, complete human beings. Now, if you're not in that mood to be a parent again in this stage of life, not that we were that old, but in this stage of life, I can totally understand that, but that's what this is.
This is what it is.
This is what it is.
Yeah, I come with two children.
Exactly.
And you're going to have to deal with the two children that I come with.
Exactly. And an ex-husband. So you're going to have to, he's going to be in and out of their lives as a father. This is what the package is. And is it something that you're looking toward dealing with?
How did your children feel about a new person entering into the family? I
was so extremely blessed. They welcomed him with open arms. There was none of that. He's not my father. You're not my real. It was none of that. It was genuine love and respect. They opened up to him. They appreciated him. They existed and then loved each other well.
Now, tell me something. Was he now the new father, or was he just your new relationship?
Initially, he was just the new relationship.
Okay.
And then he quickly became the father. I mean, they did things together like parents would. I remember he took my son on a father-son trip, so it became a true parenting relationship.
And they accepted him as dad.
They did. And I do understand it doesn't happen in every relationship. Right. And I'm not saying that that's the blueprint, but the blueprint works if you keep being diligent at it and don't make it a war of, this is your dad. Don't make them call each other's name. Don't make her call her mommy. Don't make him call him dad. Let them figure out a name that they can work with, and then check with your other person, your spouse, your ex, and see if that name is acceptable. You don't want to hurt somebody's feelings when it's not necessary. If they don't like them calling him daddy, don't have them call him daddy. Have them call him father, or work out a name that both sides can live
mutually
with, because those name things can really get things off track.
So you probably had to have a sit-down discussion with both your ex as well as the new man, if you will, in your life, who's now your husband.
Yes.
So are they friends?
Yes.
They are friends.
Now we have seen each other several times. We went to my daughter's graduation together. We're all friendly. He's remarried also.
Wow. Okay. And so you have the type of relationship with your children can go to either now their biological father or your husband.
Yes.
Okay. That's would you think that's rare? Is that a rare situation in your view?
It is a rare situation. I'm seeing on TV and different relationships that it's more than I thought, but it is a rarity. But people are starting to grow up and say, this isn't necessary. This bickering back and forth isn't necessary. You can have another family. You can have someone else out there who loves you. And I keep saying to people, why do you want to limit who loves your children? Why do you want to limit that soft place to fall for your kids? Don't you want your children to have an in-home village that they can call love? That's beautiful.
It is beautiful. This is a good time for a break. This is a very interesting topic. You're listening to Your Family's Health on the Voice of NASA Community College at 90.3 WHPC. And we're speaking to Kim B. Miller about how to love your kids more than you hate that man. We'll be back after this short break.
Hi, I'm Janelle Hale, founder and CEO of the National Breast Cancer Foundation.